All right, what is up, and welcome back to another super exciting best Tulsa commercial real estate podcast ever.
So some people think.
No, it's the best. I totally stole this from another podcast, Tyler's podcast, but we have the best commercial real estate podcast in Jinx. I guarantee it.
I think right. I agree with that. For best in Jinx, yeah.
Maybe best in Tulsa.
Yeah.
There's some good ones.
Best in Oklahoma. That's a commercial. Best in Oklahoma.
Anyway, we are back. We have a super cool episode that I think will be interesting. We've never done anything like this before, so it at least will not be boring. That's for sure. And we're not talking about taxes, so definitely not boring. But today we're going to talk a little bit about what we have going on. So we've been pivoting kind of a little bit. We have a weekly meeting, every week, just kind of align the focus. What are we looking at? What do we have going right now? What are the push and pull points on some of the deals? And I've noticed that we've been offering on existing shopping centers a ton. Again.
Back.
Yeah, that's good.
Which takes us back a little bit to how we started
about a year ago. Yeah, so it's been a whole year where just underwriting shopping centers has sucked. It's been impossible to find yield. But if you've been watching the treasuries, they've been falling like crazy. 25, 30 basis points over the past week or two. So that's super exciting because we're getting loans based off those treasuries. So anyway, tomorrow. We're driving to Topeka. That'll be exciting.
Exciting. Drive to Topeka will not be exciting.
It's because we don't have a plane.
That's true. That drive with the plane would be better.
Yeah, it'd be like 5 minutes down the road to the airport.
Yeah. But I want to comment on that. So, we've been waiting and kind of sitting on the sidelines with multi-tenant retail and, for that matter, apartments, because the metrics just weren't quite there. Coming out of the recession, cap rates were low, and then interest rates skyrocketed and blew up, and then we couldn't make the yields that we wanted to make. And we didn't want to force the issue because we didn't know how high the rates were going to go. Now we have some visibility as to where the rates are going. We think the rates are topping out. Okay, it's not a guarantee. Something can happen next quarter, maybe next 2 quarters, they could consider raises, but we think the raises are going to be paused for the foreseeable future. And
there's a lot of foreshadowing of lowering as well.
Yeah.
So, we think it's paused, and nobody's talked about lowering until just recently. In the past week or two, I've seen it up on the TV that there's been several articles about it. So
the thinking goes like this. We're seeing retail deals that were 8 cap, 8.5 cap, nice deals, decent locations. We're seeing those, not all of them, but enough of them push up to 9.5 cap. Okay, that's a really good cap rate historically. And so what we have is that 9.5 cap at good real estate, and we have a situation where treasuries have dropped almost 100 basis points, and so those rates are getting a little bit better to make that 9.5 work. But it just barely works. But our thinking is this, is that we go in, we get the deal, we get 6.5 debt maybe on a 9.5 deal, we get almost 3 points of spread. And then as the rates come down, if we get a loan we can pay off, now we're going to be able to refi. Hopefully the rates get back to 4.5, and so we can drop another 2 points. Now, if that happens, we have 5 points of spread between purchase cap rate and our debt, and so then we'll really be in the money. So that's kind of what we've been looking at lately.
Well, you said barely work, but by barely work, our models have been showing still upper teen returns, right?
Yeah.
No,
we're not over 20 like we normally are, but we're still upper teens.
Deal level IRR. In the past, again, couple weeks, we've probably sent out 3, 4, 5 of these LOIs, and I'm consistently underwriting to low 20s IRR, which is promising because we can chop that up as a sponsor and deliver. I think 17, 18, without assuming a big refi. And that, again, to Joel's point, we're looking at it as upside. We're telling the investors, hey, we've got potential upside here. I don't think we're shoving that in the model just yet, that we're going to wave the magic wand and interest rates are going to be 5% in a year or two.
We want to do that.
And I think that's why we've generally stalled on this, is because nobody knows when it's started to come down. Now that we think it's stalling and possibly even coming down next year could be nuts. Now could be the peak or kind of the lowest point of property valuation. So we've been super aggressive in finding those opportunities. And the reason we're driving to Topeka is because a lot of other people are bidding on the same property. So, we get called into a best and final. And I know we talked about that before, but again, when you're in a best and final, you are interviewing for a job. You're interviewing for that slot. You need to show up as best as you freaking can. So we're driving there. We're getting a loan quote from our lender written down. We're submitting all of this with our offer because we want the seller to believe that they have a good surety of close with us, that we're a good bet.
Yeah. So tell us about Houston. Andy went down to Houston, and that's the next deal that's coming along, right?
Yeah, it's a build to suit Callaway landscape.
Yeah, it should be launched later this week. We're going through the legal documents right now. But yeah, it's a brand new nursery or landscape center. They've got, a dozen locations in the greater Dallas, Houston area. I know there's one in Fort Worth right by the Criterion, not right by, but very close by the Criterion office and Andy's house. But this site is really interesting because it's right next door to this massive power center, like you would think a retail location would be. So Andy flew down there, checked the site out. He's met with the developer several times because the developer's in Fort Worth or Dallas. But yeah, super excited about that deal. We get a corporate guarantee from Callaway's. We saw the financials. Financials look great.
20-year lease. Did I see that wrong?
It's at least 15. I think it's 20.
It's a really, really strong lease. And so we think that'll sell at a pretty low cap. One point I want to go back to before we get into the topic of today's show is you may ask, okay, well, why are you buying now? If rates are going to come down next year, shouldn't you just wait?
No.
And the answer is no. We are, obviously we're risk takers, but we're thinking that if rates are at their peak and they're not going to go any higher, and cap rates have been working up, right, which means the prices are coming down because of that expensive debt, that now's the time to secure those properties at the higher cap rate, lower purchase price. Because as the rates come down, if owners see that, right, that's going to put downward pressure on cap rates because money is cheaper, and it's going to push those prices up. And so we think, well, if we can make it work today and get control at a 9.5 cap, then when rates come down, we already have the asset, we can refinance instead of having to compete for the asset when the rates are coming down. So that's the point on that.
Yeah, so massive asterisks. Obviously, that's not the case with long-term non-recourse debt with defeasance on it in the form of a prepay. So normally with local bank debt or regional bank debt, a prepay maybe be 4%, 3%, 2%, 1%. In the first 4 years, that may not be a prepayment penalty at all. But typically, I would say with a local bank, you're looking at around a point to pay off the loan early. Typically. So
yeah.
A lot of the times it won't be in there at all. If you go get CMBS debt or life insurance debt, sometimes it's non-recourse. It's typically lower leverage, but they lock in that rate, and the prepayment penalty is defeasance, so it can get insanely expensive.
The only time you have a chance to pay off one of those loans is if you buy really low interest rate property and you get a loan with a very low interest rate, and then treasuries move way higher.
Right.
Now, when you sell and you give them their money back and they have to reinvest it in a treasury to match the return, they can do it.
Yeah. Sure.
You got a 2.5%, 3% rate. Now treasuries are 4 or 5%. Maybe you can do it and not get totally skinned. But if you're going to buy and get a CMBS debt today, you'll never pay it off. Because rates are going to go down. And so now when you got a 6% rate, they're going to take that money and have to replace that return, and there's going to be nothing to do it with. They're going to have to buy a treasury at 3% or something. So
so pay attention to the prepay, get local bank debt.
Yeah. So today's topic is, obviously we've been talking about some of the stuff we're doing, but we are giving you a behind the scenes of how this podcast gets put together, which maybe you have some grand ideas about how much time we spend 20 hours a week preparing for this podcast, but really
20 hours a day.
Yeah. We meet downstairs at about 30 minutes before we are going to do the podcast, and we start brainstorming on what we think topics might be interesting to the people that watch the podcast. So maybe one of these days we'll spend a lot more time, but that's what we do. And we're going to give you a glimpse into that. And then I think you should have already, if you're watching this YouTube video, you should already see kind of the behind the scenes with, where the lights are and where the computers are and where all the cameras are that we look at, and they can switch in between us. And so now I think what we want to do is we're going to ask some specific questions to the team that puts the podcast together. And do we want to...
Let's start from the beginning. I mean, people want to know how this podcast started.
All right,
hit them. I mean? So, what was it? It was the beginning of 2020. everything was going great. It was like, March, and then the world gets shut down and we're all sitting at home doing absolutely nothing, right? Absolutely nothing. I remember sitting on my couch and I was scrolling through my computer and I was watching some bullshit. And then I get this great idea that I'm going to start a podcast. And I remember going up so excited. I get my laptop and I'm like, baby, check this out. I'm gonna start this podcast. Here's this idea. We're gonna do it. I remember calling Brian that day. Hey, what do you think about starting this podcast? Just kind of backroom, casual conversations about what we do. If somebody had that, I would listen to like cool stuff about commercial real estate investing. That seems kind of interesting. Nobody's got to watch it. I think we can do it kind of cheap. I think we can do it on GoPros. Was the first
we did
camera we used in your office, and we bought some like $500 table. And I remember my wife looked me straight in the face and she's like, what are you no, that's the dumbest idea ever, Braden. What are you doing starting a podcast? And that day I bought all the shit to start the podcast just to stick it to my wife.
And you've been sticking it to her ever since.
3 kids later.
Oh God.
No, yeah, that's right. I forgot. We bought some GoPros. We bought some little stands. We bought some.
We had some goofy headphones. Can we get a shot of those, Tanner, to show people?
Yeah,
we thought in the beginning we thought, well, there's no way to control the audio if we're not able to hear ourselves. Now we understand if you'll just keep your mouth over the freaking mic, you're going to be fine on audio, so we don't have to wear the headphones anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, it's what has it been? 3 years now, guys? Yeah, I mean, it was 20. I think the first episode came out in like the fall of 2020. So 3 years.
We're up to like 12 listeners. This is getting dumb, people.
We're getting one a month.
We don't have the biggest following, and none of us are trying to be famous, right? We're trying to help motivate people get invested in commercial real estate because we honestly believe it'll change your life. At least that's what I believe. And I think this is motivating to a lot of people. In fact, we get emails regularly, and this may sound insane, but people reach out to us regularly and just say, thanks, guys. This is motivating. This is interesting. I didn't think it was possible. And I believe that it truly is as easy as we make it seem. And that was the purpose in doing this, is to get more people to say, man, maybe I can do that.
Well, I like the idea when you first pitched it, and here we are, 140 episodes later.
Yeah, I wasn't sure I loved it at first, just being honest. I just didn't know if I wanted the hassle of being on camera. And you guys know I don't want to try to be famous in Tulsa for commercial real estate or whatever. So it's been good though. It's been a kind of a hobby. It's been something that we all get together, and it focuses us to think about our business and how to articulate what we do to other people so they can be involved in it as well. Yep. So let's transition then. Let's do Tanner first. So Tanner's, I'll call him our production engineer if we were going to give him a title.
Engineer. Wow.
He's a big time photography guy, and he's the one that kind of helped us get the system set up.
Technically savvy.
Yes, which I'm not.
I mean, you guys think I do all the nerdy stuff, but actually Braden was the one that did all the nerdy stuff. He's like the one that's like, hey, I got this and this, and I got all these GoPros, like you said in the beginning, and
I think it'll work.
Yeah, we're much bigger now.
So now, of course, everybody gets the camera. The camera's filming, but how do tell us exactly, if someone wanted to do a podcast, how are we taking the video and what are you importing it into where you can control and edit the film?
I think that's the secret sauce, actually, that makes ours easy.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of different programs you can use, and some of them are even free, I think. But the ones that we use is all Adobe sort of systems. I mean, they have a whole suite of what you can use. I mean, it's anything from photography to videography to straight audio to web design, stuff like that. So we use Adobe Premiere Pro. At least I do. And so whenever we're recording this whole thing, I mean, we have it recording onto SD cards and SSDs, and I'll take those home. I'll roll some footage in here of me actually doing that. And I have a sort of system set up since I've done this for, what you said, 3 years now?
Yeah, 3 years.
I have pretty easy system setup, which is very good for an editor to have, because if you're just jumbling around the entire time and you're like, oh, okay, how do I do this again? What do I do? Then you're going to be editing for way too long. I mean, the whole thing needs to be this is how you do it.
Is it pretty seamless, the video and the audio together, or is that separate and you got to marry the two?
Yeah, so I have to marry the two. I usually find a point in time where maybe Joel slams his fist down or puts his phone down and it makes a big bang, or Braden claps
his hands.
If I don't have any
That's
of those.
why I do that.
Yeah. If I don't have any of those, then I'll find a point in time where someone says time with something or something like that, where you can definitely tell that that someone's making that sort of noise, and that's where you sort of sync it up. And you can tell, I mean, by looking, if you're like, that doesn't really line up, maybe you shift it forward a couple frames, maybe you switch it back a couple frames, whatever. But yeah, usually the clap is the clap. Sorry, usually the clapping that Braden does is what helps me sync the audio and the video.
I love it.
But yeah, so I sync it all together in post, color grade, all that stuff. So I sort of have a drop in. I literally just drop everything in and sort of sync it up and put it in between. Everything inside, and like it's good to go. Like I rarely ever have to play with anything unless you guys are like, oh, let's edit that out or something like that. Then I'll actually go in. But
are you putting on the intro music and
so
stuff?
Yeah,
Is
that's all.
that?
It's all like dropped in already. I literally just duplicate the last podcast, take out the video and audio form or whatever else. Maybe I put in some graphs that time or something like that. I'll take those out, and now it's just a blank slate. So I drop in the video, drop in the audio, make sure everything's synced together, make sure the intro and outro are at the correct places, and it's good to go. I mean, I made it very easy for myself so that,
I love it.
Again, I don't take more time than I need to actually.
So then once you get it in that format, is that when you're tossing it over to Aaron to publish, market?
Yep. Yeah. So once it's all rendered out and it's good to go, believe it or not, so I've watched and been here for almost every single episode, but I have not watched every single episode.
Me neither.
I mean, I'm here for it, but usually every single time I'm here for it, I'll remember if there's like a point in time where I need to edit something out. But if not, yeah. I'll just put it in, render it out, and then upload it to our sort of Dropbox that we have. And then we have Aaron. He takes care of all the sort of social media and uploading to all of our actual platforms. But yeah, I'm in terms of behind the scenes. Oh, good job, Braden. Wow, look at that.
See, this is something we would normally cut out.
Right. Yeah. And I'm not going to. Usually, whenever I actually send it off, I mean, I'm actually behind the scenes. Aaron is the one that actually does all the sort of emojis and titling of the episodes and stuff like that. So mine is more of the long form or raw sort of stuff that you're seeing. So if you're watching YouTube, that's usually what I've done. But if you're seeing our social media accounts, that's
Like shorts and clips and
that's
So I think that's important, right? Because when we were coming up with this, how do we use social media for a commercial real estate company that at the time was maybe like trying to buy 4 deals a year? You know, how do you do that on 5 different social media platforms every single day about 4 things? You know, it's pretty ridiculous. So the podcast is a great long form content for us, where every week, we're getting 15 to 30 minutes of our thoughts about what we're doing, or updates, or our thoughts about deals, drone videos, everything like that. And then daily, Aaron is chopping those up into bite-sized pieces for Instagram. And in the reality of it, that's what people are watching. I mean, people, my family, they're like,
my family was like everybody else. They'll watch 60 seconds max. Yeah. They are not watching a 20-minute podcast.
Yeah, my job is useless, is essentially what you're saying.
No, we get lots of people that every week tell us they've listened to every episode. One guy hit us up, said he's listened to every episode twice.
Yeah, that was incredible.
That's more than me.
Yeah.
I could never get my wife to do that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, with that said,
Tanner does a great job. If any of you guys need consulting services for your own videography projects or podcast, you want to start one, get this guy to consult. He'll help you out.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
He'll probably say no.
Yeah, now bring in the guy whose job actually matters, Aaron.
Well, I mean, he can say no, or he can just increase his price till he wants to say yes.
That's true. If it involves blowing shit up, I bet he'll say yes.
Big guns. I just want to say, guys, I'm a big fan.
Welcome.
This
First time guest.
I've been here since episode 48. And I think it's
oddly
about
specific. Yeah, I like
Dude,
that.
So I'll just dive into it. Won't make it too long. I want to talk about how me and Braden met. Bob Parker was a guest on episode 69. Asset manager hits me up, says,
It's like totally ironic.
he's like,
if you guys
he's
knew
like,
Bob,
hey,
you would appreciate the irony of that.
I graduated from OSU with a marketing degree in 2020. So the job market in 2020 was ridiculous. So needless to say, I was door dashing. And I'm a artist, so I was posting on social media on all 5 platforms every day as it is. And the way I got the job was I kept bugging Braden. Like, I kept sending him videos. I knew the way to – I learned 6 months later that I beat out like 150 people simply because I just kept, like, subtitling videos and sending it to them. Yeah. So, essentially, first off, thank you. Took me out of that DoorDash life. Like, I'll never be able to repay you for that. But so I get the raw video from Tanner. I'm in Adobe Premiere Pro as well. I just started working through CapCut more because Braden, dude, I didn't know how to do this. Braden said, hey, here's a computer, here's Premiere Pro, figure it out. And I was like, all right. And, I'm in CapCut more so now, but my job is to, every day I post on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube Shorts, and it's got to be another one.
Snapchat? TikTok.
TikTok. And so if you're looking for quick growth, first off, I'm reading this book, 1 Million Followers. I'll put that in there as a reference, maybe put an Amazon link to it. But if I was following people, just mass following, not on some spam. Okay, I would hit the limit until TikTok told me to stop or Instagram told me to stop. Mm-hmm. Criterion social media started out with less than 500 followers across all platforms. And now I'm happy to say that we're at 8,000 across all platforms, but it feels like we just got to the starting line. Like, I'm still having to unlearn everything that, all these models and systems that we've developed just because, yes, getting Criterion's Instagram to 1,000 is cool, but how do we scale that? And so, for those starting off, it's that consistency of, copy and paste the caption, post the video. Copy and paste. This takes 30, 60 minutes out of your day. Copy and paste the caption. If someone says a rude comment, reply back because you're boosting the algorithm, And now we're at this point where, okay, how do we leverage our brand and scale our brand to the point where how do we get to that 10,000? We got this local following. We got people emailing us that they've watched every episode twice, and it's like, how do we get to that next level? So we're in the middle of this major rebranding and just constant improvement. I think is where he gives me such freedom in my job. He's like, hey, I want this. I'm like, Braden, what do you want me to do? He's like, I want this to be a creative hub of ideas for you. Just let it rip. And I'm like, okay, cool, But now it's time to really continue to push yourself to do that research, to, push your creative boundaries, to make emails, to email Gary V. Email Gary V once a week until he emails back.
How many times have you sent him an email?
5.
Okay.
And look, if it takes 10 or 15 to get him on the pod, I'll know it was worth it when we get him on the pod. So it
might take more than that to get Gary V on here.
Hey, whatever it takes, I'm on it.
Yeah. So I think, if you're starting a podcast, thinking about starting a podcast and watching a How to Invest in Commercial Real Estate show, first of all, it's highly ironic, but invest in a couple of key pieces of equipment. We can maybe do a video of this. I think our most valuable piece of equipment, and I'll ask Tanner afterwards, but it's probably that A10 Mini. Wouldn't you say so? And basically, you wouldn't need it if you just have a one camera setup, but because we have multiple cameras, all of these cameras plug into the A10, and Tanner's back here switching these cameras live. So the software and this piece of equipment is recording each camera individually, but it's mainly recording what you're cutting live. So when Tanner throws this in post editing, when he pulls it up at home, he's pulling up the cut show. You can change a cut or two if somebody's like sneezing or laughing or whatever, but it's mainly color grading, syncing audio, finding a highlight clip. So I think people get intimidated by the editing because they're not an editor. A lot of people aren't good at photo and video editing, even photographers and videographers. There's a lot of them that just suck at editing. So there's pieces of equipment that you can buy that help offset that. And now there's even like AI software crap that you can upload all of your camera angles in, and it kind of auto cuts. There's AI captions. I mean, I think the title should be how to start a podcast, Google plus effort equals knowledge.
Google plus effort equals knowledge.
I mean, how many times do I say that? Literally all the time. And I remember in the beginning, we hired Aaron, and we didn't have anything. He shows up, and he's just got his smartphone, and he's editing videos in his phone. And at some point, I'm thinking like, I wonder when he's gonna like whip out Photoshop. And it didn't happen. And I was just like, maybe there's a better way to edit videos, and we did, and we learned that process by ourselves. We found these cameras, we just networked. So I think a lot of these easy tasks, starting a podcast, investing in real estate, it's literally just asking people for help, finding a YouTube video like this and watching it.
Yeah, and if anybody has any questions, they can email us and we can give them an answer.
Absolutely. And just one last thing. I really believe in the power of observing results. So whenever we look at our social media, it's really funny because the major guests and personalities that we book are on Twitter and Instagram. Twitter, if you are into commercial real estate, go to commercial real estate Twitter and follow everybody, because that is the quickest access you have to very high profile players in the game. But whenever it comes to real life people and conversion rate of investors and people that have showed up to events like our new investor networking, LinkedIn. Even though our LinkedIn videos get literally 1 to 2 likes per post, apparently there's hundreds of people that still watch them. We went from 72 followers to like 1,300 right now. And I asked them consistently, so how'd you hear about us? Oh yeah, LinkedIn. And in the back of my head, I'm like, well, why didn't you leave a like, comment, and subscribe? But it's really cool to watch. Okay, if I'm looking for big personalities and broad reach, I'll go to Twitter and Instagram. If I'm looking for local conversion rate and want to meet professionals in the industry in person, LinkedIn. So I definitely encourage you to stay consistent with the posting, measure your results, find out what works and what doesn't, and you'll be surprised at how quickly things can pick up steam.
Now, before we get criticism and comments that, well, you guys only have 10,000 followers or whatever it is.
Your podcast sucks.
We get it, right? We're not doing this for maximum followers. And really, commercial real estate investing isn't a mass follower type of a topic.
We're not doing this for followers at all. First of all, we're doing this for new investor signups.
Yeah,
so
and
sign up.
So really, the purpose of this is to give us credibility, to help us advertise our deals, and to bring in new investors that hadn't heard about us that are out there searching for commercial real estate.
This is Joel. This show isn't for you. It's for us.
Yeah, for us. Our show.
I'd say it's paid off. I'd say you've had some really awesome guests on here. You've had some hilarious moments, and you're really building an ecosystem. I think you'll be dangerous.
We've received investor money purely from podcasts with people we've never met.
We've had haters.
We've had some haters.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, bring that on.
I wish we had more, actually.
Yeah, the haters are more fun.
That's the plan, 2024.
All right, we're getting long. Hopefully, you enjoyed the kind of the behind-the-scenes look at how this particular podcast gets made. We'll be back next week with an awesome new topic. What else?
Are we doing the thing we talked about downstairs? We doing the thing?
The thing? Remind me what the thing is.
Another cold plunge?
First of all, fuck you. Second of all, no. The Christmas.
Oh well, we can mention it. We haven't decided on it, but
let's decide now. I mean, what's there?
We're not going to decide now. We're going to mention it. Hey, we're going to be doing a Christmas giveaway of.
Sounds like it's going to be big.
A decent amount of money, and we'll have the parameters on our next show. But it's going to be involved some action that you have to get involved with the podcast, or I don't know. We'll decide. Make some comments. And then we're gonna kind of put names in a hat and give away a decent amount of money for Christmas. So that'll be next podcast.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm exempt from it, but once they said the amount of money, dude, I'm doing anything necessary.
No. All right, guys. Till next week. Thank you.
And we're out.